Ricken Patel begründete die größte Online-Aktivisten-Plattform der Welt. Nach Studien in Oxford und Harvard, wo er an beiden Universitäten für mehr soziale Gerechtigkeit aktiv war, arbeitete er für NGOs in Sierra Leone, Liberia, Sudan und Afghanistan. 2007 gründete Ricken Patel Avaaz, eine Plattform, die heute mehr als 44 Millionen Mitglieder zählt. Sie engagiert sich für Kampagnen zu Menschenrechten, Gleichberechtigung, Frieden, Unabhängigkeit der Medien und vielen anderen Themen. Darüber hinaus war Avaaz federführend daran beteiligt, 2014 die Global Climate Marches zu organisieren, im Rahmen dessen Millionen von Menschen erfolgreich für ein globales Klimaschutzabkommen auf die Straße gingen. Neon Green Network begrüßt Ricken Patel.
Hello, EARTHtalks. If you are seeing this, it means that the first thing I owe you is an apology because the tech hasn't worked and you're not able to see me live. So, apologies. I would love to be there with you in person, but I'm in Costa Rica right now at a training, and that's where I'd begin my talk because part of the reason I'm here is that Costa Rica is one of the most biodiverse countries in the world. There's the same level of biodiversity in Costa Rica, I'm told, as there is in all of North America. Astonishing, rich wealth here. And part of what Avaaz has been building and pursuing over the past few years has been a vision of a next leap in the environmental movement and in how we make our Earth sustainable. And that leap is an acknowledgement of humility at the capability of humanity to sustainably manage the planet. The technology, the science of ecosystems is so way beyond us. We cannot build one for ourselves that's sustainable, and we're so far from being able to understand how the Earth works, let alone to manage it and fiddle with it. And so some of our leading thinkers, people like E.O. Wilson, are telling us that the best way to do this is to let nature do what it does, to ensure that a certain minimum percentage of the planet is protected from any form of human exploitation. And so the big vision is, what if we aim for whole Earth sustainability by sustainably managing the whole planet, but allowing half of the planet to be free from human use and human exploitation, with levels of degrees. But basically the idea is protecting half of the planet's biodiversity. That doesn't necessarily mean the physical area, but of the biodiverse regions, where the biodiversity is concentrated, we focus on protecting half of that to sustain, nourish, and replenish the rest of the Earth and make it easier to make the whole Earth sustainable. That is a big goal. To some people it sounds like a no-brainer. Other people it sounds impossible. But we are actually well on our way towards doing that. We've protected huge percentages of our land area and oceans. Battle by battle, we are winning that, marine reserve by marine reserve, protected area and forest protected areas, etc. And knitting that together in a big vision, I think, has the potential to accelerate global movement on this front. I think of the way climate change worked, and when and Avaaz invested deeply in this early on to identify the North Star goal, the vision that would drive political efforts on climate change. And this idea of a transition off fossil fuels to 100% clean energy world was sort of laughed at when we first, both as a concrete political goal and as just an idea by ordinary people. It was sort of seen as like, yeah, that's not going to happen. It doesn't sound realistic, is what we heard. But it absolutely was, and of course it was the thing that the science requires. And by saying it and articulating it and giving a realistic timeline and a lot of smart strategies about how to get there, we found that it really helped coalesce everybody from citizens to heads of state behind this kind of vision and goal. And so that's what we hope is going to happen with this whole Earth sustainability vision with half the Earth protected for nature. And the method of that protection is almost equally exciting in the sense of the how. It's not just governments saying we're going to protect this area and this area, that's going to be a big piece of it. But anyone can participate. Any landowner can participate in a type of mechanism that's set up to do that. There's vast areas of the planet that are privately owned, and if we were to engage in an all stakeholders process by which everyone can participate in protecting land, we really think we can hit the 50% mark, 50% of our biodiverse regions mark in the near future. And so what a win. Now, there's a vast journey to get to a whole Earth sustainably managed, but what a step forward we'd be able to take. So that's my first pitch to you as a kind of a new North Star vision to accompany some other North Star visions we're pursuing. And of course, it lifts all boats. It's good for climate change to protect all those forests and those oceans. It's good for conservation, species conservation, habitat preservation, all of that stuff. It's a nexus point. It's a core vision that would lift all boats. The second thing I want to talk about is vision, because that really is what I have found moves the world. This contest of ideas. What ideas do people feel are right, that give meaning or context to the world? And when I think about our journey as a species, I'm very persuaded by arguments like Robert Wright's Non-Zero. It's a great book, that the story of the human journey is about ever ascending circles of cooperation by which we recognize how our fates are intertwined with larger and larger groups of people, and come together to create institutions and processes and culture that connects us, and we cooperate. And it's that process of how we surface vision and how it spreads among us, how the memes travel, how the ideas move, that determines the twist and turn of human affairs. And so and that is the thing I've come to worry about a lot recently, because I see all the instruments of our thriving and prosperity within our grasp, but this old politics and these old interests coming for the ways in which we share ideas, the architecture of our connection, the ways we connect to each other, the ways we organize. Those old forces are coming for those things. They're coming for civil society, they're coming for media, they're coming for social media, and they're trying to disrupt the processes by which individuals come together, organize around shared visions, shared dreams, and realize those dreams in the world. And that is, I think that's the central threat we're facing right now, that affects not just the environment, but everything we all care about, everything we love is at stake. So let me get a bit more detailed if that abstract doesn't land for you. If you have a world, you can build the biggest environmental movement you like, but if Rupert Murdoch owns 70% of the print media in your country, as he does in Australia, or a huge percentage of your broadcast media, as he does in the UK, and he's just a curmudgeon, like an anti-environmental fuddy-duddy who doesn't believe climate change is real and just shuns it, and really wants industry to sort of rape the planet as much as possible for really difficult to understand reasons, because he certainly gets coherent perspectives from all kinds of people all around him. But he directs his editorial teams to put those memes out into the world, and he elects politicians who do that, who toe that line. Politicians dance to the media's tune. Even now, even with all the power of social media, old media is still hegemonic in our democracies. But then you look at Facebook, where a whole new line is opened, where a series of corrupt interests, leveraging from marketing techniques, have found that you can absolutely game Facebook for just a small amount of money, a combination of advertising, troll armies, etc. You can drive whatever meme you like through social media, and you put those two together: the corruption of our old media, the corruption of our new media, and the corruption of our institutions and democracies, which goes hand in hand with those first two things. Our campaign finance, all of our political institutions of accountability. I don't think the planet, I don't think the biosphere stands a chance if we allow that corruption to proceed. And this is partly where I see threat, and I also see opportunity, because the environmental movement understands holistic thinking like few others do. We know how ecosystems are complex and interdependent and nonlinear, how there are tipping points, and small things can make huge differences. A keystone species can be removed and an entire ecosystem collapses. And that kind of holistic thinking, I believe, allows us to move from these issue silos we are in, where we focus on, we're an environment, water, Brazil person, to seeing the things that are at the crux of everything we love and care about and mobilizing to those causes. And that's where I feel the evolution of the environmental movement is present, is happening, and needs to accelerate right now, because the threats are non-linear. They're moving fast. So that's my second pitch to you. First pitch is the 50-50 vision. The second pitch is this moving from an environmental silo vision to one that embraces media, politics, democracy, as this intertwined. The human ecosystem and the environmental ecosystem are deeply intertwined. Our fates are intertwined. And if we allow non-linear, corrupt, or decay processes to take down the strength and integrity of our human systems, they will collapse our environmental systems, and a feedback loop goes through that process. And that's the history of collapse of civilizations. Jared Diamond's kind of work really shows us how those processes work. And that, I think, just takes me to my last point, which is just, I think it's on these issues that our destiny will turn. Things are moving faster than they ever have before. These processes by which ideas move and travel are moving at light speed right now. Everything goes viral in today's environment. There's a good book called The Global Brain, which... Sorry, I have somebody coming in here. There's a good book called The Global Brain, which describes how this architecture of connection that's happening between each of us is reminiscent of a human brain. Each of us are like neurons that fire with an idea, connect to another person, and that travels like waves and patterns through human consciousness. That is accelerating. And the capacity for some algorithm that some Facebook executive chooses, or some editorial decision that some corporate guy chooses, to literally introduce like a mental illness into our global brain that can have catastrophic consequences has never been higher. And so our awareness and attention and our accountability and our democracy and our wisdom about how we architect and regulate and engage with these structures has never been more necessary. And I think it's on these questions that will turn our destiny, because these things are coming so thick and fast that it's hard to see. Some of the futurists are giving humanity a 50-50 chance of survival. But I've said before, while the history of civilizations is littered with the decline and fall of civilizations, we can't afford that fate this time, because our civilization is the first in human history to have the capacity, the power to collapse the biosphere. And there's every reason to think that in our descent downwards as a civilization, we would take the biosphere down with us. And so that makes us the last civilization. And in that last civilization, who are we? What are we meant to be? Are we guardians? Are we protectors? If you look at the devastation of the natural environment over the course of history of this earth, it hasn't actually been hominids that have been the biggest destroyers. It's been natural causes, climate change, asteroids, things like that. And Mark Linus writes a beautiful book about the God species that suggests the idea that we may be protectors. We can shoot down those asteroids, maybe. We can try to regulate the climate to sustain this period of thriving of life in the biosphere. Are we those protectors and those guardians? Or are we a plague? Are we the worst thing this biosphere has ever seen? That, I think, is the crucible of our time. And I honestly believe it's being won and lost right now in these architecture of our connection fights within our democracies, within our media, within our social media. These are the places that decide whether the ideas that demonize and divide or the ideas that connect us and allow us to cooperate thrive. And those, the harmony of those ideas, the balance of them, the Sturm und Drang of them, is what will determine the path that we walk and the path that our biosphere walks. So that is the perspective I wanted to offer you, and I hope it was helpful to you in some way, and that it inspires your action, because there has never been a time when a single individual had more power. Any individual, any randomly chosen individual had more power in the history of our planet, more power to do good or ill. So I think it's incumbent upon all of us to use wisdom, to choose how we use that power, and to choose wisely. So thank you. And if I'm available, I would love to take your questions. If not, my apologies again. Have a lovely day.